You know, at the last meeting and discussions I had with President Trish, and his comments this morning, earlier, is just about having someone available to talk to you guys and anybody that wants to talk. We've just brought on a person, Will Boer. Where are you at? If you look at this guy back here, he's the go-to person. His name is Will Boer. He'll be located in one of the new trailers brought in at Sportsman's Landing. He's your go-to guy. He has open access to me, but he's going to be there pretty much every day. And if you have any questions, want to talk about anything, he's the person to go to. We'll have another person we're bringing in to kind of help him during the daylight hours. So there'll be a couple of people floating around, but he's your main go-to person as a community relations liaison. Thanks, Will. I guess just in closing, Texas Brine has been in this community for well over 40 years, and we plan on being in the community for many years to come. We will continue to work with DNR and the Assumption Parish officials to bring this issue to closure and to get it resolved. At the end of the day, we will contain the sinkhole, we will get the gas vented, and I'm confident that we're going to demonstrate that the dome is stable. But that's what Kevin and Bob Toms will talk here in a little bit. With that, let me kind of transition into the next portion and introduce the next couple of speakers. The purpose of this next section is to provide everyone with a more in-depth understanding and explanation of what active seismic imaging is. You've heard a lot over the last couple of weeks about vertical seismic profile, or what we're calling VSPs and the thumper trucks, et cetera, et cetera. Dr. Toms will talk about that. That's part of the active seismic stuff. But then Kevin's going to talk about 3D imaging and what our 3D seismic survey will encompass. So let me introduce our two speakers, Bob and Kevin. If you'll stand and come on up. I know you guys are both going to talk about this, but here on my right, your left, is Dr. Bob Toms. He lives in Baton Rouge, a longtime LSU professor. He's a consultant in the rock mechanics area related to mining and storage and salt formations for probably about 40 years. He's consulted in the design and analysis of rock salt mines and operations of solution mine caverns for many years. And to my left is Mr. Kevin Hill. He's a physical consultant with more than 33 years of experience on the Gulf Coast and international in the exploration and production geophysics and geology. He specializes in integrating state-of-the-art geophysical technologies with geology and has designed, acquired, and interpreted numerous 2D and 3D surveys around the world. Current work includes work on a lot of 3Ds, but also 4Ds, and he'll explain that in a little bit. Like Dr. Toms, he's an LSU graduate just a few years ago in 1977, and he's received many, numerous technical awards over these years. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to these two guys, and I don't have a green light on my pointer, so I don't know what I did. Will or Todd, do I just?
No.
Oh, we're back.
Okay.
Let's see. There we are. Okay. Bob and Kevin, it's yours.
Thank you, Bruce. I'd like to make a couple of changes to his introduction. One, I took early retirement from LSU in 1982, so I've been away from the place for about 31 years, but my heart's still there. The other is I came to Louisiana in 1962 from the neighboring state of Texas, so I started teaching at LSU in 62. I went down my first rock salt mine in 1968 in the old Martin Weeks mine, and I've been in every rock salt mine in the Gulf Coast except for Winfield, which flooded before I had a chance to get into it. So I've been in the salt works for some time. Let me say that this is the first sinkhole that I've encountered that's so complicated. It's also the first accidental oil and gas well that I've ever seen in a sinkhole over a salt formation. To understand what's going on here, we need to have a good image of the surface of the salt dome. And to do that, we need seismology. Kevin here is a seismologist. I'm a geotechnical engineer, but I certainly appreciate what seismic studies do for us. So I'd like to begin by talking about active seismic imaging. Ruth touched on that, why we need to do it. Let me point out that passive seismic monitoring is the sort of thing that's been going on for some time. It's what people do when they listen for earthquakes all over the world. They sit and listen for something else to cause an action, and then they locate it. This is what the USGS was doing here for quite a period of time. But now we want to move to the active, which means we're going to thump the system and try to get some sort of reaction from it that can be interpreted to give us information on the surface of the salt dome. In particular, as the slide points out, we want to characterize the surface of the salt dome in the neighborhood of the well that collapsed, and also the sinkhole to the surface. We need this information in detail so we can talk about the stability of the dome and the future of what is going to happen here. There will be two techniques. I'll talk about the first, Kevin will talk about the second. The first is the so-called vertical seismic profiling. Why vertical? Well, traditional seismic work started laying everything on the surface, both the thumpers, or the sources, and the receivers. And they thumped the things that down in the earth, bounced back, and were received and then interpreted. But some people suggested, why not put the receivers down the well? And they did this, and so they still thump around the surface or different places, but the receivers are down in the well, hence the term vertical seismic profiling. And again, the main objective here is to get this information, number one, safely. This is utmost importance. And then quickly and also accurately. Okay, well, DSPs will use the vibro-sized trucks, the thumpers, this energy into the ground. Then there will be instruments down in the wells. They'll pick this up, and using computers now, which are a wonderful device with an immense amount of information that comes up, this can be analyzed to image the flank of the dome. This will be good down to depths of about 2,500 feet. At greater depths, Kevin will give you information as to how that information will be obtained. 4 VSP surveys have already been performed. Points out 4 have been performed between January 7th and January 18th. 3 of these were designed to image the western flank, that is the side of the dome, in the neighborhood of the well. And the 4th is going to be done to locate the seismic events more accurately. That was done at the 480-foot geophones well. These images should be available in mid-February. So this is a pretty quick turnaround. And again, the bottom line, this will be combined with Kevin's 3-dimensional analysis to give us a very complete picture, accurate picture of the western surface of the dome. At this point, I think I'll turn things over to Mr. Hill.
Thanks, Bob. So I got to Louisiana before Bob. I got here in '56, and if you look at me, you'll figure, he might have been born here. And it was close. And I have lived in Louisiana and worked in Louisiana and decided to stay in Louisiana. I bring that up because when this developed, when this started developing, I got phone calls and people wanted to know, will you get involved? And I said, as a consultant, I have other jobs, and I was doing a very large job in Brazil. And I was asked, could I come in here and do this? I also have areas that I've worked before, and there can be conflicts of interest if I work something for one company and then another. But we got all that resolved so that I could come in here and do this work. And I have to tell you, when I drove down here, I remember as a kid riding in here with my father fishing in these bayous, because we would come over from Metairie, and we loved the bayous around here. and you all have a very beautiful place. And my job is to collect an image, and when we're finished collecting that image, that snapshot of the subsurface, you won't know that we've been there. That's our goal. And in doing something like that, it's a little tricky, but after having done this for 35 years, I think we got the hang of it. But this is going to be the fastest way and the safest way to get a really fine snapshot of the subsurface. What's under your feet? We're going to use what is the industry standard, which is 3D seismic. It's used all over the world before you drill any wells. The resolution that we're going to get is going to be some of the highest ever done for this kind of work. Although I have done higher resolution, I've actually imaged mines as they're mining under the ground at 500 feet. We watch the way the mines are being drilled, and if there's a little crack and water leaks in, we can actually see it. And we can go in and grout that. This is the kind of detail we can do with seismic. But you have to know what you're looking for here. And we designed this 3D program for very specific objectives. And we have the success rate in the oil and gas business has gone way up because of 3D seismic. And it's, you know, most of you all were here probably, raise your hands when Legend came through and shot the 3D over the dome about 5 or 6 years ago. Most of you all remember that. So they probably came in and talked to you about it, but I'll tell you a little more about it. It's kind of like a CAT scan or an MRI. They're using technology that geophysics developed years ago in that. But because it's that time of year, let's think of a king cake. You know, everyone knows there's something in the king cake, right? And you'd really like to know where it is so that you can give it to that special person. And one of the things about a king cake is you know they have plain king cakes and they have filled king cakes, and then they have layered and wrapped around king cakes. And if all of this is going on in a cake, and you could see it and know where that baby is, you might be able to give it to the person that you want to. Now, in the instance here, think of the king cake like the earth. We can only see on the king cake the icing, but what's inside of it. With the 3D seismic, we can slice and dice this down to, I could actually count the number of pecans in here if I need to. But I can find the baby. I can even tell you which end's the head.
That's what we on that at.
So, what we've done here is I'm showing you a picture of the data from the earlier 3D, where we map the horizons here with the layers of black and white are the different rock layers, which the seismic will show. Then we can see where the salt is in here, and the top of the salt dome is green and the edges are orange. And then down in the deeper section, which you all have heard about, is a horizon called the Big Hum. It's the Bigenerina humbolii. It's a little bitty fossil, and it's how we identify that rock layer. It's the first oil and gas formation that produces around this side of the dome. Now, the oil got in there only about 100 million years ago, you know, so now it's coming up to the surface. We got to find out why. We're going to take this 3D image and image the north side of the dome, and we're doing this so that we can see the